Did you watch the presidential debate this week?
Of course.
How did you react to what Donald Trump said?
I want to throw up, that's all.
Philomene Lewis is 53 years old, and last week she spoke to Post reporter Danielle Paquette.
And why did you want to throw up?
Because the thing they say is not fair. It's not true.
Philomene moved to the U.S. from Haiti 3 decades ago, and for the last 2 years, she has lived in Springfield, Ohio, where she owns a general store. Like millions of Americans, Philomene watched the debate between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. And she was outraged by what Trump said about the Haitian community in her home.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
There is no evidence to support Trump's claims. And Philomene said she had never heard of anyone in the Haitian community eating cats or dogs.
We eat chicken, goat, beef, pork, fish, shrimp. That's the thing we eat.
I watched that debate myself. I heard Donald Trump say, they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats. And I'd already heard from city officials that there's no evidence to support those claims. So I wanted to know, what did life actually look like on the ground in Springfield, Ohio? How did actual Haitian immigrants feel about this? What were the consequences of those claims?
What my colleague Danielle found was a community struggling to get its bearings after being suddenly thrust under a national spotlight. Despite the lack of evidence for these claims, both Trump and his running mate, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, have continued to push the story. Trump has even promised to mass deport Haitians living in Springfield. And in the week following the debate, more than 30 bomb threats have been made in Springfield, some targeting elementary schools. Danielle says there is a lot of fear and anxiety among Haitian immigrants in Springfield. Some are wondering if they should leave the city entirely. But some people, like Philomene, are refusing to be intimidated.
Philomene told me that she's not going anywhere. Her friends aren't going anywhere. They truly believe they are contributing in this positive way to the city. And she feels like she belongs in Springfield. This is her home now. She has a store. It's full of regulars. They're buying peanut butter and cereal and lottery tickets and whatever else. And she has a real community here.
And for me, I don't think Haitian going nowhere. If they don't have job for them, they may be going different city to go look for job. They're not gonna leave. The Bible say, whatever I put my feet, it is my heritage. I belong here.
From the newsroom of The Washington Post, this is Post Reports. I'm Martine Powers. It's Wednesday, September 18th. Today, it's been more than a week since the debate, and still this comment from Trump is fueling the political cycle. So today, we are going to dig into how a wild conspiracy snowballed from one Facebook post to a viral political talking point. We'll have that conversation later in the show with our colleague Sarah Ellison, who's covered media and disinformation. But first, Danielle takes us around Springfield to see how this conspiracy has affected some of the people at the center of it. So, can you describe Springfield, Ohio? When you got there, when you got off the plane, when you started driving around, what did you see?
I wasn't sure what to expect. I had also seen a lot of that right-wing propaganda floating around. Someone had called Springfield, Ohio, a, quote, combat zone, or it's, quote, being overrun by migrants. When you actually pull into town, things are calm. The streets are pretty quiet. People are going to the farmer's market. People are going to church. I didn't see any combat. So the recent history of Springfield is, by all accounts, kind of depressing. This was a quarter century ago, this prosperous manufacturing hub, lots of growth, a lot of pride. Then you see this period of decline. Factories are shuttering, jobs are moving overseas, young people are moving away. People wondered, is Springfield actually going to die? So at that moment, about 4 years ago, the local government had been working hard on a plan to attract new employers. That did happen. Warehouses opened, factories opened. Suddenly, companies are assembling car parts again or producing tires. Amazon is moving into town. Tons of jobs open. One immediate challenge in town was, how do we fill these? So there was outreach to immigrant communities. Around the same time, Haitians were looking for a safe place to live. In 2021, the country's president had been assassinated. A lot of folks in Haiti were looking for a place they could live that felt safe, where their livelihoods weren't threatened. There was already quite a large Haitian population in the U.S. People heard about the opportunity in Springfield. People moved to Springfield. They told their friends about Springfield. These wages were quite good. We're talking $19, $20, $25, and soon there was quite a sizable population boom.
I want to ask, just because this is part of how former President Trump and other politicians have been talking about this, but the people who have moved to Springfield in the last few years, I mean, largely they are here in the U.S. legally. They are living in Springfield legally, correct?
Oh, yes. The vast majority are there on work visas. If they're not, they're there legally seeking asylum.
Are there numbers of how many Haitians came to Springfield during this period?
Officials estimate that over the last 4 years, something like 12,000 to 20,000 Haitians have arrived in Springfield.
Wow. That's pretty significant. I mean, compared to what, like how big is the town itself?
It was significant. This is a town that was about 60,000 folks at the time, and overwhelmingly white. With any kind of population boom like that, you're going to see a lot of similar growing pains. People have complained about traffic getting worse or wait times getting longer at the doctor's office or the cost of housing going up. A lot of the Haitian immigrants who've come to town are making higher wages. They're driving up the average income in town, and rent has gotten higher. It has been this mixed bag. The good is that now more people are paying taxes. The city is able to make more investment. The level of investment has not caught up with the amount of need, however.
But I'm curious, from the people who actually live there, the longtime Springfield residents, was your sense that they feel there are a lot of people who've shown up here recently and we want some of them to leave? Or is it that a lot of people have shown up here recently and we need more help?
You hear a mix on the street. There are people who've been cramming city council meetings saying, we want these people out. It's making our lives harder, more stressful. Get out of here. You know, at the same time, you'll hear people who are grateful and happy and are friends with their Haitian neighbors and having barbecues with their Haitian neighbors and saying things like, Springfield has gone through a lot of pain anyway in the last quarter century, long before the Haitian immigrants arrived. And folks have been looking for a scapegoat. Here it is. You know, if maybe you are struggling to pay rent for a variety of reasons, it's really easy to point to the newcomers in town.
So tell me a little bit about what you heard talking to members of the Haitian community in Springfield. We heard from Philomene at the start of the show, but what did other people tell you about what life has been like in the last week or so?
So after the presidential debate, people started getting harassing phone calls. I was at a Haitian restaurant where the manager kept picking up the phone and hearing from people spewing all kinds of vile stuff. One caller while I was there asked him, got any dogs or cats? And at that moment, he didn't want to freak out his staff. They're all Haitians. They'd all been hearing the worst stuff all week long. Elementary school on lockdown, bomb threat, just this repetition of really scary things happening. And he tried to remain calm, and he used his customer service voice, and he just responded, "No, but we have chicken and pork." Just trying to remind people, I'm human too. I am not out here trying to catch a cat. They're trying to find ways to laugh it off. But still, that same restaurant ended up closing early that night. They usually stay open long past nightfall, but they wanted to get home before sundown because things just felt so tense. In my reporting, I also spoke to a man named Lindsay M.A.
When they talk about Haitian eating pets and stuff, I felt like it was a joke they made for people.
Lindsay moved to Springfield in 2019, and he came to the U.S. in part because of the violence he'd witnessed in Haiti.
Springfield, I never know about Ohio before. I never know about Springfield. But when I don't have choice, I can't live in my country. I start making a couple phone calls when I come.
Lindsay is an interpreter at a warehouse. He speaks fluent English, French, and Haitian Creole. But back in Haiti, he'd worked as a lawyer. And so he's just completely disturbed by these claims that Haitians eat pets.
I got 5 of them. That's my favorite animals.
He had 5 dogs back in Haiti. He described dogs to me as man's best friend. When he walks down the street and he sees people walking dogs, he always wants to stop and pet them. Now he feels like he can't do that. He's worried his neighbors think he's going to try to abduct their pets.
Oh, gosh.
He's got a 12-year-old son who still lives on the island. He's trying to get him here to the States. He wakes up every morning afraid for his son's safety. He checks his phone to make sure his son is okay. But in a weird twist, in recent days, his son was worried about him. The kid had seen, hey, what's up with all these cat memes? Are people eating cats where you are? And Lindsay told me that the son was disgusted by this. And he said, no, absolutely not. He tried to say, I can't even handle American ranch dressing. It upsets my stomach. They tried to laugh it off. But it's just this devastating thing. He couldn't believe he had to tell his son that his Haitian neighbors here were not eating pets.
Because all the families was overseas or in the other states, they check on you to know if you're safe, are you okay? They try to beg you to stay safe. And
everyone, his extended family, his mom in Haiti are like, hey, are you okay? Are really worried that someone might try to attack him. In recent days, he's been wondering if he should stay here at all. He's scared. A lot of people are scared.
What has the city government been saying and doing over the last week in light of these comments by the former president and the way that it's resulted in these threats?
The city government, the mayor, Ohio's Republican governor, they've all been saying, hey, there's no evidence to support these claims that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are making. And in fact, the baseless rumors are actually putting real people in danger. So they've been sounding that alarm. They've been coming out with what they say are the facts, that Haitians in Springfield are here legally, that they are here to work, that they're not abducting people's pets. But it just seems like a lot of that communication is falling on deaf ears because the rumors, the conspiracy theories, the claims, they keep swirling on social media. And Donald Trump and J.D. Vance continue to repeat them as well.
Danielle, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Danielle Paquette is a national correspondent for The Post. Of course, we've all seen the memes at this point. But how did this one rumor reach the ears of Donald Trump? And why are we all still talking about it? After the break, Democracy reporter Sarah Ellison breaks down the origins of this story. We'll be right back. So, Sarah, we just heard about how this conspiracy about immigrants in Springfield, Ohio, is impacting the people who live there. And I think it's worth trying to understand where this story starts and how it was able to spiral so quickly. So can you talk to me about what is the origin of this conspiracy?
Sure. I think it makes sense to go back about a year ago with the death of a little boy named Aiden Clark.
At approximately 8:16 a.m. this morning, a school bus was involved in a crash here on Troy Road, which is also...
A minivan went left of center on a rural road, hitting that bus. The bus flipped over.
The crash happened around 8 this morning on what was supposed to be the first day of school for those students. 52 children from Northwestern local schools were on the bus.
That crash left a child dead, and it left an entire community in mourning.
Aiden was an 11-year-old boy on his way to the first day of school on the school bus, and that school bus was hit by an oncoming van that was driven by a Haitian immigrant who was driving without a proper driver's license. Aiden was thrown from the bus and killed, and about 20 other children were hospitalized from that accident.
So after that horrible tragedy, what happened next?
So the city of Springfield had seen a large influx of Haitian immigrants in the past few years, and they had revitalized parts of the local economy, but there were also strains on the city services. And so with the death of Aiden Clark, those frustrations and that tension really exploded. And some of the residents of Springfield became much more vocal about their resentments about this influx of Haitian immigrants.
These Haitians are running into trash cans. They're running into buildings. They're running into... They flipping cars in the middle of the street.
I feel like we have been invaded by some sort of pest. I'm angry that my friends and family are packing up and moving away. I'm angry that foreigners are using up the resources that were set up for the Americans that reside here.
Over the summer, things sort of culminated with the white supremacist neo-Nazi group Blood Tribe, which marched through the center of Springfield carrying swastikas in order to protest the Haitians in town.
But then how does that get to rumors about people eating pets?
The origin of this claim seems to have come from a private Facebook group called the Springfield, Ohio Crime and Information Facebook group. And the fact-checking group NewsGuard originally identified that particular private Facebook group. A woman from Springfield evidently posted a message there, and a member of that group then screenshotted that post and circulated it very widely from there. The original poster left a message that a neighbor's daughter's friend had lost her cat, and that she had come home to see that cat hanging from a tree by her neighbors. And just quoting directly from that message on the Facebook group, the cat was hanging, quote, from a branch like you do a deer for butchering, and they were carving it up to eat, end quote. And the they that they were referring to in that message was a group of Haitians who were living in that house. And the person also went on to elaborate and say that she had also heard from local police and rangers that ducks and geese had also been sort of abducted by Haitians from a local park in town. So those two sort of claims started originally on that Facebook group.
Is there any evidence to actually back this post up, that what this person is describing actually happened?
The local Springfield police investigated this and said that there were no credible reports of anything resembling pet consumption in the town of Springfield. There were some social media users who pointed to a video of a Black woman being arrested for killing and eating a cat in a driveway. But upon further examination, that video was taken in Canton, Ohio, which is not Springfield, and the local authorities identified that woman as somebody who was born and raised in the United States and was not Haitian. And this group, NewsGuard, tracked down both the woman who made the original post and her friend, and reported that the woman who posted this message said, I don't think I'm a very reliable source on this. I don't have any evidence. She sort of distanced herself from what she had written online. And so even going back to actually try to find the source of this very unusual, strange rumor, even the person who started it can't point to actual evidence that it actually happened. But it didn't really matter because the rumors took off and spread like wildfire.
Sarah, do you have a sense of whether something could have been done to stop these rumors from spreading so quickly and aggressively?
Well, what we have in 2024 is a social media environment that is very, very different from what we had in 2020 or even 2022. What we have seen is a real effort to pull back from fact-checking on the major social media platforms, led in part by Elon Musk's purchase of Twitter, now X. And he explicitly wanted to remove all kinds of fact-checking and other sorts of moderating of that platform. Meta has pulled back from that as well. And so there's no political appetite for fact-checking in the way that there used to be 4 years ago, 8 years ago. And so in theory, you could have potentially stopped some of these rumors, but not in this moment.
So I don't think it'll surprise many listeners to hear that there is no truth at the root of these rumors, and they're just things that ended up online that weren't true, like a lot of things are not true online. But the fact that it spun out into such a huge narrative, how did that happen, and who was responsible for spreading it?
Well, you're right. This is the kind of thing that happens all the time on the internet, on the very far reaches of whatever fringe element you want to look at. But what was striking about this is that these rumors didn't just stay on far-right social media accounts. They quickly entered the GOP mainstream. And what we saw was that big politicians like Ted Cruz, Jim Jordan, Marjorie Taylor Greene, they were all sort of spreading these posts. And we saw that, by Monday afternoon before the debate, Washington Post analysis showed that 159 right-wing influencers and 23 Republican politicians, candidates, or party officials had discussed this meme online. The most prominent politician who started really spreading these rumors was Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance, who is obviously a senator from Ohio, and said that he had heard from his constituents these complaints about pets being consumed by what he said, people who shouldn't be there. And from there, Donald Trump makes this mention of they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats, they're eating the pets from the debate stage in front of tens of millions of people.
Why do you think so many politicians and right-wing influencers glommed on to this rumor that so many people saw on its face wasn't true?
The people I spoke to who study this sort of thing talked about how that this is actually an issue, immigration and the border, that is very popular for Republicans among the American electorate. It polls very highly for Donald Trump and his campaign. And so it's an issue that naturally Donald Trump and his ticket want to put out in front of people. And at the same time, J.D. Vance, in an interview with Dana Bash on CNN, said,
If I have to,
But it wasn't just a meme,
create stories so that the American media actually pays attention to the suffering of the American people, then that's what I'm going to do, Dana, because you guys are completely letting Kamala Harris.
Dana Bash jumped on that and said, you just said you created the story. And J.D. Vance came back to her and said, what I meant is I created attention to this story.
I say that we're creating a story, meaning we're creating the American media focusing on it. I didn't create 20,000.
I want to come back to Aiden Clark and what has happened since this tragic death of this boy. His parents have actually come out to talk about what this moment of media attention has been like for them. Can you talk through what we heard from them?
So the day of the presidential debate, in fact, just hours before the debate, Aiden's parents, and specifically Aiden's father, Nathan Clark, took the podium and spoke in front of a city commission meeting during the public comments portion of that meeting. And he talked in such a raw way about what this attention meant.
You know, I wish that my son, Aiden Clark, was killed by a 60-year-old white man. I bet you never thought anyone would ever say something so blunt. But if that guy killed my 11-year-old son, the incessant group of hate-spewing people would leave us alone. The last thing that we need is to have the worst day of our lives violently and constantly shoved in our faces. But even that's not good enough for them. They take it one step further. They make it seem as though our wonderful Aiden appreciates your hate, that we should follow their hate. And look what you've done to us. We have to get up here and beg them to stop. Using Aiden as a political tool is, to say the least, reprehensible for any political purpose. And speaking of morally bankrupt, politicians, Bernie Moreno, Chip Roy, J.D. Vance, and Donald Trump, they have spoken my son's name and used his death for political gain. This needs to stop now.
And those names we just heard, Bernie Moreno, Chip Roy, they're politicians. Moreno is running for Senate in Ohio, and Chip Roy is a congressman from Texas. But Sarah, I'm curious, what was your reaction when you heard the speech from Nathan Clark?
My first visceral reaction really was heartbreak for this father and family to feel so compelled to have to stand up and talk about their son's death in this way. What struck me was how he felt so used by the current political moment, and he called out politicians by name who had used, in his words, used his son's death for their own political purposes, and he asked for an apology.
How much life do you think this conspiracy still has left in it?
It's not entirely clear, but the memes of cats and dogs online have not stopped. And both Donald Trump and J.D. Vance in the last week have continued to push this idea, and in fact have talked about how the only reason why we are talking about Springfield and the problems in Springfield are because they have brought this issue to the world's attention. And I was speaking to a number of different politicians, local, state, operatives who work on a national level, and they all asked me to kind of imagine what this debate might look like in a different political era, where you could have a debate over what level of immigration people want to have in this country, how much federal funding should be given to individual towns or regions, or any number of different issues about job retraining or affordable housing or real issues that we can imagine having debates about and trying to solve. But they were all very disturbed and flummoxed by the idea that you could take a real issue in a town and turn it into such a dehumanizing, racist, damaging meme that sort of does nothing for the town of Springfield except put a tremendous amount of attention on it in a way that isn't that helpful. In fact, we all heard from town and municipal leaders in Springfield saying that Springfield is a place that needs help. It does not need the kind of rhetoric and the kind of discussion that national politicians are bringing to it in this moment. And they're begging for people to stop. And it's sort of dispiriting to think about how much time we've spent talking about it and how little actual assistance has been offered to the town of Springfield, Ohio.
Sarah, thank you so much for sharing your reporting on this.
Thank you.
Sarah Ellison is a democracy reporter for The Post. Before we go, we want to update you on a couple stories, including one I can't stop thinking about. Those pager blasts in Lebanon that we talked about on yesterday's show. Today, there was another wave of explosions from electronic devices. This one left at least 14 people dead and more than 450 others injured. That's according to the Lebanese Health Ministry. One of the explosions happened at a funeral for 4 people who died in the earlier attack. A crowd was gathered at that funeral, and bystanders said that someone on the edge of the crowd was holding a radio that exploded in their hand. The Israeli military has declined to comment on whether they were responsible for these attacks. According to a statement put out by a United Nations spokesman, Secretary General Antonio Guterres was deeply alarmed by the reports of these attacks. Guterres is calling for, quote, maximum restraint to avert any further escalation. And this afternoon, the Federal Reserve announced that they are cutting interest rates, which signals some good news for the middle class. Here's the chairman of the Fed, Jerome Powell.
Our patient approach over the past year has paid dividends. Inflation is now much closer to our objective, and we have gained greater confidence that inflation is moving sustainably toward 2%. In light of the progress on inflation and the balance of risks, at today's meeting, the committee decided to lower the target range for the federal funds rate by a 0.5 percentage point to 4.75% to 5%.
To be clear, interest rates are coming down by 0.5 percentage point. Okay, that might not sound like a lot, but this is a pretty big deal. If you are thinking about buying a car or a house anytime in the near future, this could mean your car loan or your mortgage would be more affordable. And this could have a political effect, too. It may give Vice President Kamala Harris's presidential campaign a pre-election boost. That's it for Post Reports. Thanks for listening. If you love the show, help other people discover it by leaving a rating on Spotify or a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Today's show was produced by Peter Bresnan with help from Emma Talkoff. It was mixed by Sean Carter and edited by Rena Flores. Thanks also to Susan Levine and Mary Jo Murphy. I'm Martine Powers. We'll be back tomorrow with more stories from the Washington Post.